So, over the course of the past year, a few of you guys may have noticed this fun little piece of kit hanging off the front of my gun. And what you might also have noticed is that it doesn't exactly behave like most grenade launchers that you've seen for Airsoft. And I'm about to go into why that is. So, why is this so cool? Well, traditionally, Airsoft grenade launchers have actually fired in a spray sort of pattern. Essentially, you'd fill it up with BBs, you would pull the trigger on the grenade launcher, and boom, you have a massive shotgun. Cool in its own right, but not exactly like a grenade launcher. Moving on from that concept, though, Airsoft Innovations released a grenade fired through these same mortar tubes that would actually launch a string of BBs. And sure, a burst of full auto was definitely effective, but I was looking for something a little bit more if I was going to strap an underbarrel grenade launcher to the front of my gun, which adds a little bit of weight. So instead, what I've decided to use has been these guys. These are the Taggin C02 shell launching systems. So let's get right into what makes these guys so cool, because I have gotten a lot of questions about these while I'm running these on the airsoft field. Question number one, are they fun? Yes, these are one of the most fun things I've actually played around with in airsoft. Question two, what do they run off of? That's going to be green gas and CO2. However, do not get the green gas versions. I found that they can't actually trigger the launchable shells anymore, so you're going to want to go with the CO2 version. Third question I get asked a lot is, what do they launch? That's actually going to be these foam-tipped, plastic, fuse-based shells that essentially launch and explode, not on impact, but on timer-based ones. You can get different variations of these. Some launch out smoke, some are impact explosive head-based. I'll get into those later. And finally, lastly, some of them can actually function like the traditional shotgun shells like you've seen out of countless other airsoft grenade launchers. The next question is, are these safe? And the answer is mostly yes. I find that the impact-based explosives can detonate a little bit too close to the skin, which can throw in some danger elements. But if you're smart and you're launching these adjacent to people instead of at people, the explosive-based warheads I don't think are much of a problem. If you want to go with the ultimate safety ones, though, these yellows are only timer-based, which means they have plenty of a chance to bounce off of someone and not explode on impact. I've actually had one of these actually impact someone's right arm when I was pretty close on accident one time, and it made more of like I think a paintball bruise than really a traditional airsoft gun wound. But still, be careful with these. Finally, how do these work? That's going to be probably the biggest question. These are pretty simple. Once you've reset the button and you press down on the CO2 charger, just like so, this is going to fill with CO2 gas. After that point, you simply pop the actual projectile into the device, and I like to push down, and it actually spins and contorts. That's going to be real important for the accuracy of this later. Once the gas has been filled inside of this, there was no gas in the shell system, so it's perfectly safe right now. The grenade launcher button on the inside of your grenade launcher will actually press this and send this guy shooting out. It pops out the grenade just like that, and this will come flying and spinning out. Additionally, there's a fuse that gets popped by the CO2 pressure, which means this will start smoking if you have a successful launch and detonation. And that's pretty much the basics of how this whole system and setup works. So if you like pistol-based launchers, I actually highly recommend that with this system and setup. However, I actually prefer the mechanics and the push grenade into grenade launcher function of the M203. A couple of tricks when actually putting the projectile launcher into the system. Make sure you come up over the top, and down and in, and then slide all the way in. And gently press on this so that the grenade launcher button doesn't accidentally get pushed. Secondarily, some M203 launchers have to have the trigger mechanism modified. It's a simple unscrew and you're basically done. It's nothing like the inside of a gearbox. Finally, is this effective? And the answer is, it is very effective, but you have to know how to use it. The best cases I've found are when clusters of enemies are clustered deep inside brush, or they're inside of a window, things of that nature. Basically, if you can get a grenade into a building, it's going to cause probably a kill for you. You can also use these in defensive scenarios when many enemies are attacking at once. About how much these grenades cost, they do come to about $10 to $12 per grenade. When you factor in, though, that these are launchable grenades, which travel way, way further and basically do the same thing that a hand-throwable grenade does, I tend to look at those $2 extra as adding some range to your grenade throw. You do have to get them in packs of 10, so you do have to put that money up front, whereas you can sometimes buy smaller grenade packs from local fields for less money. The actual shells, I think, come to about $70 or $80. Let me check that, and I'll put that in the edited version of the video. But these are a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I do have some bad news regarding this whole setup and system, which is why I'm not going to say to go out and buy it immediately. As much as I love this whole setup, there is a couple of problems. One, don't run green gas. You will not have a good day. I may have already said that, depending on what part of the video this is in. But secondarily, due to some restrictions in the US, the projectile pieces, these guys are becoming incredibly rare. They are sold out everywhere online that I can find, and everything I know says they're not getting back stock anytime soon. Recently, there was a ban on Russian-made ammunition being imported into the United States, and Taggin is a Russian-based company. So what that means is until they can figure out how that ban affects them and how they're basically going to be importing these projectiles, nothing with pyrotechnics in it, like these guys, can be put into the US. So if you really want to launch a projectile with a grenade-based fuse, you're kind of going to be out of luck. There is a couple of options in the meantime, though, that you might be able to run. First off are 3D printed Taggin rounds. Yes, they don't explode. Some of them do whistle, and I have actually even seen some of them explode into chalk. Speaking of chalk, that's going to be the other option you may have. Chalk rounds are still probably going to be imported to the United States just because chalk rounds don't contain any pyrotechnics. Essentially, the shell cracks, releasing a powdery cloud of chalk. Those guys are awesome, but your field does have to count those as an explosion radius for them to really be worth your time. So really consider that heavily if you're preparing to use these in your grenade launcher system. I really, really like these, and I would really like to see a lot more of them put out to use in the airsoft field. But right now, that possible ban and restriction is really hurting the possibility for this awesome product in the near future. That's going to be it for today, folks. Next up, I'm hoping to be putting out a gameplay video for y'all. But in the meantime, have a great day, don't be a cheater, and that's all, folks.